What is it like to decide that you are going to gallivant around the whole world solo, so much so that you have named yourself the Gallivanting Grandma? And not only are you doing it, but you are meeting sisters all around the world and you're teaching others how to do it. Today, we're going to get into how this grandma got into being a world traveler, a lover of life, and creating the life of her dreams in her 60s. I am your host, Tisha, your midlife makeover maven, and we're getting into it today with our guest, Diamond Crystal.
Hey, Tisha, thank you so much for having me. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you. It's been a long time since I wanted to talk with you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. We'll get into the story about how we met electronically, and it was
Uh,
during COVID, and we were kind of doing the same thing, and that is we were both traveling the world. And I think you heard me speak on a YouTube, and we had
yes.
a conversation afterwards, and you took an idea from that YouTube and you have created something so magnificent with it that I'm just so excited to talk to you about what it is you're doing. So tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing.
All right. Well, thanks so much. That is the beauty of social media. That's the best side of social media, right? Is being able to connect with like-minded people, to share thoughts, concepts, get validation, see representation. So us meeting on social media was just an absolute blessing. And yes, so I am Diamond Brand New Crystal, and that name is by design, but I am also known as the Gallivanting Grandma because that is the joy of my life is my daughter and my granddaughter.
Oh,
So I travel the world. I call myself an international connector intentionally as a global travel ambassador for women over 55 who are looking to thrive and embrace a new portion of their life, a new part of that journey.
all right. So I want to talk about the journey from how you got here. So how many countries have you traveled to in the last few years? Well, first of all, where are you right now? Because it looks like you're in a very warm place.
Listen, I had to open the door, hope that the air conditioning didn't fail because I am in beautiful Santa Marta, which is on the Caribbean Sea in the country of Colombia.
Oh, wow. So where are you
Yeah,
from?
I'm originally from Long Island, New York. So
Ah,
I'm a New York girl through and through.
awesome. So how
Yeah.
long have you been gallivanting, Miss Diamond Crystal?
My. Okay. Well, my granddaughter said that, Grandma, you wouldn't be the gallivanting grandma without me, right? I've been gallivanting around for 2.5, almost 3 years now.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about like what led to you being able to be in the spot. Like tell us how you got to this decision. What's your background? Like how did you get to this space? Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. All right. Well, I started this journey, like I said, about 3 years ago, and it was on the heels of a lot of personal trauma, a lot of personal loss and grief, including, my 23 is a resounding number through this story because I had been married for 23 years. That marriage dissolved. At the same time, my mother was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. So 23 days after she passed, she lost that battle, and 23 days after that, my father just laid down and died. So it was like it was compound trauma in my life at that time. I had not even had time to process the divorce, which you know how that can be. Sheesh. I needed a shirt that said that I survived the divorce process. I know you can relate, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So it was on the heels of my parents passing that I really needed to do something because, life was turned upside down, inside out with the loss of my best friend.
Wow. Where were you in your career? Were you working at that time?
I was working for the first time in like 12 years because I was getting a divorce, and I'm like, oh shoot, like I need a job now. I hadn't worked in 12 years. So I returned to corporate event planning, which is my background. So I
Okay.
had done that for big business. I had done it for nonprofits, and I was with a nonprofit organization in the Charlotte area at that time doing their event planning. So that's my background.
Woo, you have said a
Yeah,
lot. So those things happen in a very short period of time. So
absolutely.
how did you get through? Like what was going, like as you are dealing with one trauma after another, like really your whole world sounds like it just imploded in a very
Yeah.
short period of time. So what was that like for you? What was it like to go through? What were you holding on to? What kept you going?
Faith, period, end of story. You know, I knew that the journey with my marriage was long overdue over. So dealing with that reality at the same time as getting my mom's diagnosis, I had to, you know, really stretch that faith muscle. And like I said, my mom was my best friend. So, you know, we were like, we in this together. You know, we gonna make sure that you get what you need, how you need it, and enjoy your life. And you know, folks say, how are you traveling all over? My mother was definitely my inspiration because towards the end, she did what the heck she wanted to do, how she wanted to do it. And, you know, she was taking cruises in between chemo treatments and things of that nature because she was like, I'm living my life, what's left of it. So I had great inspiration and example from my mother while she was here.
Now, was traveling something you planned to do prior to, the trauma that you experienced, or is this something that you decided on the back end?
No, that's a good question. I always wanted to travel, and I thought that would be something that in our retirement years that my then husband and I would do together, right? You know, we promised one another this particular country, that particular country, because he was military, ex-military. So he had a lot of experiences that I didn't. So I was looking forward to that. And I said to myself, well, now wait a minute. I don't have to put any of my dreams on hold or defer them, you know, eternally simply because I'm not in a partnership, a marriage. So that's when I decided, yeah, I'm gonna take my mom's example and do what the hell I want to do when I want to do it. And so
Uh,
I started traveling. Yeah.
I didn't know we had that in common. My soon-to-be ex-husband's also military,
Uh
and
huh.
we had that similar plan, but it didn't go according to that plan, right?
And you know,
Okay.
we plan, God laughs, and we keep on moving.
All the time, all the time.
Yeah.
So, all right. So your mom passes, your dad passes, you've gone through this divorce. What was that time frame between when those things ended and you actually started the journey to being the Gallivanting grandma?
Well, I wasn't the gallivanting grandma at first. I was just, you know, Diamond Crystal doing the house sitting. And
Right.
house sitting was absolutely, I believe, you know, a godsend for me because I was my mom's primary caregiver. And so that I used it as a respite because, you know, I was hands on being the medical power of attorney and having to make really difficult decisions um, for her. And in a time when it was COVID, you know, so it was like compound decisions. And when I could take a long weekend, if a family member would come and spell me for a while, that's when I would use house sitting as a respite, just to get away, to escape, to center myself, and come back rejuvenated so I could be my best self for my mother. And so that's what house sitting initially did for me.
I agree with you. It was the same for me. I was living
Yeah.
in a chaotic household, so it was my way to just kind of get away, especially to get to the beach. And it was like you said, it was that respite, and it
Hmm.
starts to, once you're able to go away for a little while by yourself and you survive and you go a little bit further, then you go a little bit further. That international travel thing, a lot of people say, well, how do you do it? Well, it's a muscle, right? So you
Yeah.
start a little bit at a time and you get further and further. And like with you, house sitting really came at a time where I really needed that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And to know that there's a whole community of people who look like us that are house sitting around the world, and we'll get into that a little bit further. I mean, it's been wonderful. It really
Yeah.
has.
I
So
agree.
what inspired you to transition into international sitting as a lifestyle?
Well, that was always the goal, international travel. And once, like you said, I stretched that faith muscle and I started being more secure in trusting my instincts again because it was just me now, right? I had been part of a partnership my entire adult life. This was marriage number two for me. So I've been married my whole adult life. And so sometimes as women, we tend to not lean so much into our inner standing and our instincts because we have that partner guiding and leading and we're following, right? So this was the first time that I actually started trusting myself again. And as I did more of that, I was like feeling invincible. Like if you watch any of my videos, I'll tell people I feel like I should have a cape on my back with an S because that's the way I feel in life right now, completely empowered and being able to listen to my inner self.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
think that, and I've said this oftentimes, that for me, travel is my self-care. And it sounds
Mm,
like it's similar for you in that, it's a place where you really get to find a little bit more of yourself and expand your thinking and being involved in other cultures. That is fantastic. So share some of your memorable experiences while you're house sitting around the world. You got some of your favorite?
well, oh yeah, my definite favorites are places that I'm returning to.
Uh-huh.
So Colombia is a first time here, but I am returning to Portugal for another. I call it a repeat hug because I
Oh,
really enjoyed it last year, as well as the south of Spain. So, but this year, Tisha, I'm looking at it with kind of different eyes because I'm at that point where I've been solo traveling for 2.5, almost 3 years, and I'm like, okay, if I were to park it for a minute, where would that be? So now I'm going back to places that I enjoyed and I'm looking at it from a different set of eyes. Could I stay here 6 months to a year? Is this some place where, I might be able to post up and get a greater sense of community? So I returned to Portugal. I've been to Spain, the south of Spain, which is a love affair that I'm still having.
I think Malaga is my favorite place in the
Oh
world.
my gosh. Oh
I
my
love
gosh.
I love
So
it.
I have back-to-back sits in that area. I've been invited back to a sit in Fingarola, which is outside of Malaga. So yeah, I'm going back for a return hug.
Okay. So we've got everybody excited about this life, right?
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
I let's just say I'm new, never even heard of house sitting, never really heard of gallivanting around the world. I'm in my 50s and 60s. How do you put this life together? What did you put in place to allow this life to work for you?
Well, I purged. 100% purged. When my mom got really, really ill and we knew it was kind of close to the end, it was time for me to renew my lease on my apartment. And I was living in Charleston, South Carolina at the time, which is a very, it's kind of pricey to live there. And I'm like, I don't think that's what I want to do. So I didn't renew my lease. I purged everything. I got rid of stuff. To the point where my daughter was like, "You gonna buy them same shoes again? Because you had them last year." Type of but for me, that's what I needed to do because so much of what I had accumulated was attached to my past. And I
Mm.
knew it was time for me to move forward into my incredible future, which I had envisioned. Right. So I didn't want to take any of that stuff. I didn't want to do storage, any of those things. So that's how I prepared. I completely purged and became untethered to anything and anyone other than my babies.
Ooh, let's pause.
Yeah.
So I think because for many people, right, that is the
Mhm.
biggest thing. Like, and I can be honest and say, as much as I love to travel, there's something that I like about being anchored to
Uh-huh.
something, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I think that there's a mindset shift, thinking of being a nomad and thinking about being untethered is pretty scary because we've been taught that we need to stay connected, right?
Yes.
But what I'm hearing you say is the freedom of the disconnection really is what has allowed this life to be possible for you. Was that something that was frightening, or was it just part of the healing process? Kind of, how did you get into that mindset wise?
It definitely was part of the healing process. Because, like I said, after 23 years in a second marriage, what I had accumulated as far as things were concerned were all attached to certain memories, which I no longer wanted. So that was part of the healing, to purge all of that stuff. But then, was it scary? Girl, heck yes. I mean, I had not done solo travel outside of business travel, and I don't really even count that, right? Because you're there with colleagues or whatever the case may be, and all of that for me was domestic when I did business travel. So it was scary as heck putting that passport to actual use. So my first foray was a tippy toe. It wasn't a jump, it wasn't a walk, it was a tippy toe, and I took myself to Belize. And I call it my punk out decision, because I was like, I don't want to learn a new language. And Belize speaks English, and I don't have to learn anything. And I'm going to go live on the beach and just be a free spirit, right? In my mind. So it was my punk out move. As much as I enjoyed Belize, when I got there, I knew that was not my, final forever home. So I was like, if I could do Belize by myself, I can do a whole lot of other places. So that's really what started it.
You know what's interesting about that? If I go back to like where solo travel was for me, it actually was, I was with a group and I'd gone to South America, and we were going to the Galapagos, and we were in South America. I didn't go to Quito. I stayed down in Guayaquil because I carried a sickle cell trait. And so Quito has a high elevation. So I was concerned, I had heard that maybe, if you got sickle cell trait, maybe that's not a good idea. So the tour guide arranged for me to stay back in Guayaquil while everybody else went up to Quito. So I ended up being in South America by myself. Didn't speak the language, by myself. It was only a couple days, but I was like, man, I ate, I went on a tour by myself. I got back to the
all the things,
all of that. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing, right? So it wasn't a big something. It's just like you say, it was just a couple days. It wasn't me planning the whole thing, but it was like, man, if I can do this, I can go further by myself.
Exactly.
The same with you and Belize. You're like, if I can take this little trip, and I think a lot of people think when they see me travel far, and same with you, that it just started that way. It did not. No. It was a small something. So when you went to Belize, was it for a house sit, or was it for you going on an extended vacation?
No, that was an extended vacation. That was my celebration of my divorce being final. And you and I share kind of a similar story in that it took much longer than we ever would have anticipated or desired. But when it was finally wrapped up with a bow and I was the new me, that was my celebration. And that was this is how I'm going to start living my life. I'm going to do the things that I said I was always going to do. And if I have to do them by myself, then let's get started. So that's what took me to Belize. But I will tell you, everybody wants to know how did I get into house sitting? So let's just pause for a minute and just say thank you for the representation of Stephanie Perry as a global house sitter.
Absolutely.
I will tell anyone she is the GOAT, okay? And had I not seen somebody who looked like me doing something that I did not even know was a thing, I'm like, what? Like, you haven't paid rent in a year? What? How? So Stephanie was my accompany partner during my mom's chemo, because mom's she's getting her treatment and she's in her Zen mode and doing what she needs to do. And so I'm on YouTube just following this Black chick talking about how she living all this fabulous life for free. That's how I got started. So she's the GOAT. I thank you, because without that representation, I would have been like, that ain't for me. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm Black. Black people don't do this. I'm sleeping in somebody else's house. All the things.
Girl, I don't know. No, I started doing local house sits first, just around Metro Atlanta, because it was COVID, right?
Yeah.
And I knew that if I hated it, it was going to be okay. Like I knew, so I had these like parameters, right? The house got to be better than mine. Yep. I can only do a couple days at a time. I can't have more than 2 pets, right? And actually, I think I booked my first pet sit with a couple that had never had a house sit before. And I think I'd gone to Fort Lauderdale. So we took a chance on each other. Got our reviews and it was there. So it was Fort Lauderdale first, I'm always going to the beach. And then my next one was to Destin, which was steps from the beach. And then I did a 3-week house sit at the beach. I mean, and it's just like you do it over time.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to be in the Exodus Summit group, right? And being able to connect with Stephanie and you, and you realize like this is really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And you can have these parameters and we're everywhere. Like
Mm-hmm.
I remember like in going through this process, I remember talking to my therapist. I was like, I need a group. I need a group. And she's like, well, if you can't find a group, create one.
Uh-huh.
And it's very
Right.
similar to what Stephanie and Rashida did was we're doing this and we feel like more people should be doing it. I
Mm-hmm.
would tell anybody, especially families, house sitting can be the most magnificent thing. And I've done house sitting with friends. Like you go into a fabulous place, I invite a friend. I'm going back to another one that I did before and taking a different friend. It is
Yes.
really good time when you can go with a girlfriend and you're just enjoying yourself. So you can do solo, you can bring a friend, you can meet another house sitter. It's just, it's endless. It really
Yes,
is
yes.
endless.
You said a word earlier. You said freedom, and I want to take that just a step further and talk about liberation,
Mm,
because this lifestyle liberated me from a whole lot of boxes and, social norms that I grew up with. My mom was that woman and it was that way. And my dad was a police officer. So my house was very, we had a lot of boxes,
right.
and being the oldest, I was very careful to stay within those boxes. And you're in a pleasing mode. But this is complete and total liberation. I tasted freedom with the first couple of sits that I did, once my parents were gone. But now I feel completely liberated. Everything is the possibilities are now endless. The options are open.
Were you always this bold, or is this something that happened later in life for you?
I would have to say that I've always been a calculated risk taker. And I
Uh,
hear that from my brother, who is 10 years my junior. And he says to me, you've always been the one to take a chance.
uh-huh.
Becoming an entrepreneur with my second marriage was a huge chance that I took, because I was very gainfully employed with large oil company, right? Doing major events all over the country. And it was like, all right, well, we're gonna do this is what we're going to do. And we started a company. It was very successful. And, like I said, my dad was a civil servant. So he didn't understand, like, you giving up safety, security, pension, all the things that mattered, and they still do matter. But I was willing to take that risk. So I would say calculated risk taker. And now I would say huge risk taker.
Yeah, I mean, totally, totally, right? So we talked about like some of the good things with your sits. Talk about some of the challenges you've had with house sits
Well,
or solo travel, solo travel.
yes. Well, hosts are people and everybody has a personality. It takes all kinds to make the world, right? I've had some hosts who have been more gracious than others. I've had some hosts who were very more particular than others. And those are the more challenging sits because it's kind of like this set of rules that you didn't know you needed to adhere to when you accepted the sit, but you get there and now it's like A, B, C, and D, that type of thing. But you got to learn how to roll with the punches and understand that, this is their home, and you're there to provide a service. Now, like you, I love luxury sits. Like I ain't going nowhere that's not better than where I could take myself, right? In the group, the
Absolutely.
Sisters Who Sit group, one of the ladies was like, how come you always got a hot tub every time you go on a house sit? I need a hot tub, a pool, something. Why am I going somewhere and not have any of those amenities if I could do it on my own? So, it's a great
Yeah.
lifestyle. That's the flex as far as I'm concerned.
For you, like, how do you plan out your house sits? Like, how do you, schedule out where you're
Mhm.
gonna do your sits? How does that work for you?
It's really strategic in that I know where I want to start my year. So this year I said I wanted to bring in the new year someplace different. And I was in Coronado Beach, Panama to bring in the new year. So I also had a sit that was starting 4 days after the new year. And I build my sits around wherever my first location of choice is. So I know I want to go to the EU. I'm in Lisbon. I know I got 90 days over there unless I decide to extend. So I build all my sits around one fabulous opportunity. And sometimes I don't even have to build them because I went to Mexico. My first international sit was 5 months in Mexico. And they only gave me 6 months on my tourist visa.
Wow. How long did it take you to plan for that?
That fell in my lap. Let me tell that story if you'll allow
Please.
me. All
Absolutely.
right. So part of my healing exodus after Belize was to take myself for 60 days. I asked for a sabbatical. I didn't know that was a thing
Right.
until, right? Exodus Summit. So I went and I said, listen, I've been through a lot. This is what's going on. I really need a break. And I was working at the time for a small nonprofit. So what they could offer me was paid 60 days. And I'm Superwoman. I can get this done. I can heal myself in 60 days. Oh yeah, I can do this. So I went to Ecuador. And it wasn't a house sit. It was just my time to, start going inside and healing the inner me. Well, I'm there and day 50 rolls around and my boss starts texting me and she's like, we're so excited that you're coming back. This is what we have planned. And this was like still COVID time. And we're going back into the convention centers. And I'm like, I'm not going back into the convention centers because I had my laptop with me because after 60 days, I was going to work remotely. I was working remotely anyway. No dream we're going back anytime soon into, actual facilities. And that didn't sit right with me. And then on top of that, I felt like if I were to go back now, I'm going to undo the work that's already been done.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't good for me. And that was the first time in my entire life that I said no to being employed, or having a regular source of income. I was like, no, this isn't going to work for me. So now here I am. She's like, well, if you can't come back at the end of your 60 days, then we can no longer guarantee you a position. That's when we had to part ways. In love, this is not working for me. What I'm doing is not working for you. So we parted ways. Now I'm like, well, what the hell you gonna do, chick? You don't have no job. Where you gonna go? You only got a lease in Ecuador for 60 days. What are you gonna do? And I leaned back into house sitting. And my prayer was, give me enough time to get my life together. And the universe, God, whoever you want to call them, delivered a 5.5-month sit in the Lake Chapala area of Mexico with a car, taking care of a cat. So you better be careful what you ask for.
So let's pause.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a bunch of stuff here. The first is you can't take care of anybody if you don't take care of yourself. Number
That
one.
part.
The job is going to always make demands, but you do have a choice. And
Yes.
when we lean into the faith of our Father or the universe or whomever it is, what you need will show up for you. We just have to be unafraid to challenge what we've always been taught. And one of the things I can appreciate in that story you just said was, I knew going back into that environment was going to undo the healing work that I had done. And so the fact that you could put yourself first and you had spent enough time being in tune to you and what you needed, you were able to not make a decision out of fear.
Yes.
And could make a decision that was in your own best interest mentally. And then everything flows from there, right?
Everything flows from there. Absolutely. And I tell that story intentionally because it was exercising that faith muscle. Like, what I need at this point. I did not know what I was going to do, where I was going to go. I knew I didn't want to return back to the United States at that point. So like I said, I leaned back into house sitting and that's what was delivered. Now, the flip side of that, which it was a beautiful time there, right? I found tribe there. My sisters there are my people. However, my daughter was like, yo, you said you was going to be gone for 2 months. What do you mean you're going to be gone for another 6 months? Like, that wasn't the plan. and I'm a recovering type A, right? So everything was according to plan, in order. This is what's going to happen on this day at this time. You never late, all the things. And my daughter was like, "So who are you? Like, what do you mean you're not coming home?" So we had to reconcile that between the two of us, because like I said, this was pretty much COVID time, and we were really leaning on one another after, my parents were gone and all of that. So we really had to talk through that and establish some boundaries and talk about, where we saw ourselves going directionally. And now she's been my biggest supporter ever since. But at first she was salty. Like, what do you mean? You're supposed to come back? Like, I need you.
So let's unpack this a little bit, because when we start doing things that are unconventional, the people who are closest to us will sometimes be feeling some kind of way, right? And we are, as Black women, let's just keep it real, we're so used to taking care of everybody else that we'll put their needs ahead of our own. And I heard you say the magic words, right? Boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And you said, I had been married, I lost both my parents, I had been my mom's caregiver, I had my daughter, which means that you had been doing some raising of her. And finally, you're like, I've got to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And you're going to get some pushback. If you love somebody and you're separated from them, you're going to get some of that, and it may be uncomfortable. However, there's a way to work through it.
Yes. And communication is key. We all have challenges every day, right? Nothing is all peaches and cream. And at that point in time, with me not coming back, it seemed like lots of things were happening in my daughter's world that were unexpected at that point, which, had I not been resolute in taking care of myself, I would have hopped my butt right on back and said, okay. And there was nothing that I really could do. Understand that. But my mom mind was like, oh, I need to be there. I can do this. But the assistance, the support that I could offer her, I could do that anywhere in the world, other than a physical hug, other than a physical kiss. So I had to reconcile that within my own spirit as a mom, and as a mom first, but to say, I still got some healing work to do, and this is not going to serve me at this point. Hard decision, but the best decision I ever made, other than getting divorced. I'm sorry.
Don't be. Well, let's go ahead and talk about it, right? Oftentimes we find ourselves in marriages that we're doing it because that's what we've been taught to do. We're stuck in it. You're not really happy. You're not living your best self. Your mental health starts to decline. Your physical health starts to decline because you're holding on to what you've been taught to believe is what we're supposed to do in society. I see a peace and a light over you at this moment that, I didn't know you before. All I know is the peace and the joy and the happiness and the light that I see. It's undeniable. It radiates.
Thank you.
And what I think is so beautiful about your story is your age, right? So I'm gonna keep it real, right? I was going into 50 with trepidation. I was 40. I was scared. I mean, my marriage was in the trash. It was COVID. I'm going through this divorce. I was 65 pounds heavier. And the women in my family were not thriving later in life. My mom has a chronic illness. My aunt got colon cancer very young and subsequently had a stroke. So my mind was, I'm going to 50, I'm going to die soon, I'm going to get sick soon. So I literally had to, and my marriage was crumbling. So everything I knew in my life was falling apart. So I thought. So going into it, I needed something new. I needed something different. And so when I turned 50, I was in Mexico by myself at a resort and took some underwater photos in a cenote, right?
Yes.
Totally scared. I mean, I was scared the whole way, but I was like, I've got to find a way to celebrate. I don't know how much longer I have left, right? I don't know what it's going to look like on the other side, but I'm going to be adventurous and enjoy these next phases. You are like a decade older than me, and you
Mhm.
like doing it on a whole nother level. How do you think about, your life moving forward? Like, what is your plan for your older years, or have you even thought about that? Are you living more in the moment now?
I am very much in the present. It is a gift. It's called the present for a reason. I open it every day. Now, the planner in me is like, okay, like I'm booked out until August,
Mhm.
literally back to back six. So that part of my life is planned. I know where I'm going to be. But as far as where I see myself in the next couple of years, no, I'm very much enjoying this time right now. It has been given to me in this package. I unwrap it every day.
I love it. Because I think that there's a lot of us who get scared about the future. So we're not living
Uh-huh.
right now. We're living our whole
Exactly.
life. I know so many people that they're planning for retirement, they're working towards that pension and they get sick, or the job cuts them, or something happens where they
Hmm.
never made it to that point. I call it the deferred life plan.
There you
And
go.
hearing you say is there's no such thing. There's only right now. You can only deal with right now.
Right. So that doesn't mean that you are not a good steward over that which what you have now, right? You do the best that you know how to do. Be a good steward over your health, over your finances, over your heart, guard your heart. But at the end of the day, that should not be a hindrance to any joy that comes your way right now in the present. So, do I think about money and retirement? And listen, I'm about to be 62. So, listen, I'm not waiting. My mom and my dad died at 79. So if that is the longevity that I have to look at, I'm going to be 62, God willing, in August. What I'm waiting for. So, I tell people, yeah, this is the year Uncle Sam going to start running me my money because I work for it. So
I
run me my check every month and let me decide what I'm gonna do with it. But am I worried about it? No, I'm not, because I've been a good steward over what I have been given all along. So while
love
I'm not out here, living frivolously, that word at all. But you're conscious of what you're spending. You got to have a budget, otherwise you're gonna fail on some level. But it does not stop me. It doesn't hinder me from enjoying what it is that I'm doing right now.
I love it. I love it. So, can you describe the process for coaching other women in the art of house sitting and how you help them navigate this lifestyle?
Absolutely. I will say that the majority of my coaching initially is getting over the fear. The questions of, can I actually sleep in somebody else's bed? And my answer is, well, you do it every time you go to an Airbnb or you do it at a hotel. You don't know, how frequently that's turned over. So yes, you can do that. And can you do it by yourself? Yes, you can do that. And so just kind of talking through some of the initial fears and turning those fears into inspiration. So
Mm.
while it's more of a guidance than it is a coach, to be honest with you, it's listening and responding in a way that is going to encourage and inspire. And that's what I do with the 90% of the women that want to start it. They're fearful. So how do we attack that fear, and where is that fear really coming from? Right? Because if you can address the fear, you can do anything.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. So, you talked about maintaining, you like, these are your tribe. You found your tribe all over the world. So how do you maintain your connections with them?
Oh, FaceTime is a great friend. And of course, WhatsApp. So just being active in what they're doing on social media. I have some folks who, they're doing amazing things in Chapala, opening B&B Airbnbs and things of that nature. So just staying connected through social media and then going back and visit.
I
Because
love
you
it.
can, you have that flexibility. That's the real flex, is having time and location freedom. That's the new flex. I had all the old trappings, and I purged those trappings intentionally because they kind of hold you back from being your best self, but also from being the best friend you can be, the best sister you can be. I think I'm a better sister now than I ever have been in my life. My brother and I are closer than we've ever been, and I haven't seen him, in months. Some friends I haven't seen in over a few years, but the joy that you share with them, you know, keeps you connected, and you have to be intentional about maintaining those relationships. My daughter and I are on WhatsApp video more often than not. You know, when my granddaughter just got her first pair of glasses, and so I'm there at the appointment while she's, you know, getting dilated and things of that nature. So you have to be intentional about maintaining those relationships that are meaningful to you.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, and we'll get into that in a second. But I have a virtual assistant that lives in the Philippines, and I remember a few months ago I went to go get some glasses, right? And there was someone that called me to remind me about my appointment, and I could tell they lived in another country. And
Yeah.
I got there, and you know, I went into the computer to like log in, and then I went to these different stations, and then the optometrist, you could tell, was living in another country, like in Mexico, and everything was being done via computer. And of course, my mind's like, "Ooh, I could run a whole business from anywhere in the world as long as you have these pieces and people in place, and technology allows that to happen." So
Yeah.
I started looking at things from a different perspective. And one of my girlfriends just moved to Barcelona, and she is running her business
Oh,
at Coastal. And one of the things that she said is when she was here, you know, in Atlanta, she found herself getting caught up in the material trappings, going out, spending money, materialistic things, and all of that.
mhm.
Says she's found that life is more peaceful when she's by Coastal because she's not wrapped up in all the material things. And now she's really focused on living more life, which I think
Yes.
is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So for you, and how do you manage your finances? You touched on this a little bit. You talked about a budget and kind of
Hmm.
moving forward, but what does that look like? How do you manage? Okay, I'm going to go on this trip, and I've got to get there, and I need to have this much money. How do you coordinate that?
Well, in a nutshell, I determine whether or not it is more or less than I would be spending if I were renting or paying mortgage in the United States. That's my barometer.
Okay.
So, very transparently, I was paying $1,700 a month for my two-bedroom apartment in Charleston, South Carolina. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't turned on a light or air conditioning or fed myself or had internet, right? So my barometer is, can I spend less than $1,700 a month going someplace else to live for a month? And if the answer is yes, then I do it. So
Mm-hmm.
now that has decreased. Where can I go for $1,000 a month and live? So I'm going to Portugal. My ticket costs $679. Where in the world can I live for the month of March for $679? Period. All expenses paid. Where? Nowhere. What box? You show me the box that I can live in for $679 and be in Portugal enjoying the Algarve. You know, that's like the most expensive area, one of them in Portugal. Where can I do that for $679? I'll wait.
So hold on.
There, nowhere.
You just dropped the mic. You just boom. You just drop the mic because it's a matter of perspective, right?
Yeah.
So many people that we know are working from home,
Hmm.
who have savings. They think that for them to leave for 3 months or 6 months, it's going to be so totally incredibly expensive. And let's back up about what we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
You said that you were able to get a sabbatical from your job, a paid sabbatical for 60
Hmm.
days.
Yep.
Then you talked about you getting ready to go to Portugal to do a
Hmm.
house sit where you're staying for free, and your ticket
Yes.
costs you $679. So
Hmm.
we're not talking about something that is outrageously expensive. It's just a matter of thinking about it from a different perspective. So you're
Exactly.
telling me that somebody can go and take a 6 month sabbatical, whether they quit their job, they get laid off, whatever it is, you can go get your life together for not that much money anywhere in the world.
Go get your life together, and I don't care if it costs twice that much. But first of all, get your life together. But second of all, understand that it is possible to get your life together without spending your life savings. So I was already in Ecuador. Now, I went to Ecuador on airline points. So it cost me nothing to get to Ecuador, right? I still had points left over. So it cost me nothing to get to my 5.5 month sit in Mexico. So for 5.5 months, I had nothing to pay for except what I wanted to do and my food, period. Oh, and I had to gas up the car because they left me a car to drive. So for 5.5 months, you tell me you can't get yourself together? You got airline points, and if you don't, how much is the ticket to Mexico? You know, pick a time of the year when it's affordable for you. But do it. Don't let that stop you, because it is so very possible. Again, I haven't paid $1,700 a month rent anywhere in the world since I started this journey. Period.
Wow. Wow.
Right?
So, Crystal, can you share some tips on staying safe and secure while you are house sitting in unfamiliar places?
Oh, most definitely. The first thing is share your location. You know, we grown women and we like, I don't want to be sharing my location. You don't need to know where I am. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Share your location with your children, a trusted friend, your mom, whomever. Share your location. Register with STEP. Make sure that they know where you're going to be in the event that there is some civil unrest. There's a reason to get out of the country. There's a earthquake. You never know. Make sure that you register so that your passport is registered wherever you're going.
What exactly is STEP? Please share with the audience.
Oh. Okay. So I know it's the State Department, something or another. I should have looked that up before I said it.
It's the Department of State, I think.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the notes.
In the comments. Okay. Yeah. But yes, register and let them know. Yeah, for the month of February, I'm going to be in Colombia. And then for the month of March, I'm going to be in Portugal. And then the months of April and May, I'm going to be in Spain. In the event that, you know, you need to be evacuated, there's an emergency, they need to get in touch with you, you know, and you can make informed decisions. The other thing, being a house sitter, I would say there are tracking apps that I recommend you find one that works for you, because you're in a foreign place, first of all. You may not be, I'm going to Portugal, I don't speak Portuguese. Obrigada, bom dia. You know the greetings and how to be polite and how to order your food. But other than that, you're on strange streets walking a dog sometimes, right? Track that path and let somebody else know what path you take on a regular basis, 2 or 3 of them, right? You don't want to take the same one every day, because eyes are always watching, physical eyes. And as a solo traveler, particularly a woman, you want to make sure that you vary your steps a little bit, even if you're going to be there for a long time. So I have a tracking app. This is on this day, this is the way I went to walk the dog. My daughter will know she's at the corner of X and Z. And those are the things that, you know, we kind of give resistance. We don't want to do it because we grown, but somebody needs to know where you're at, even if it's just a sister friend.
That gives me a couple questions. Have you ever been in a space where you felt unsafe?
No, I have not.
Good to
Thank
know.
God. I have not felt unsafe. I have felt very unfamiliar and a little bit turned around. Like, oh my God, how am I going to get back? Particularly when I'm walking. And at that point, you know, I'm just going to call an Uber or a Bolt or something and get back to where I need to be. But I have never felt unsafe. I've never felt threatened any place that I've traveled to by myself. And, you know, thank God for that. But, you know, I got angels.
Do you do a lot of research on the places you go before you get there?
Oh, yeah, you have to. You have to. You should. That's part of your due diligence. And I think that makes you a better house sitter. Because, you know, if you've already done some basic research on the area where you're applying, that's a conversation that is well received by your host. Oh, well, you're not coming in here and you're trying to, you know, figure it all out. You've done some basic research. They're very gracious about telling you where you might want to go for restaurants, that type of thing. But that does resonate very well with a potential host.
What do you do? Like you mentioned going to Portugal and you don't speak the language. What are the things that you do to kind of prepare yourself for going into an environment where you're unfamiliar with the language?
Again, just brush up on the greetings so that
Mhm.
at least you can attempt to speak the language, and that goes a long way. You're not coming in with that colonizer type of attitude, like, yes, I only speak English, and so you must speak English, otherwise we don't communicate, right?
Right.
So that does go a long way with, and I'm in the local community. I'm not in a resort where everybody, for the most part, will speak some level of English. So you do have to navigate those neighborhoods, those barrios, the communities that you're a part of, and you have to do it successfully. And then let's not negate my new best friend, which is Google Translate.
Right.
Can
Yes. Love it.
can you say that into my phone, please? Yes. It is my best friend when I travel.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell our group. You've got some coaching that you do, not
Yeah.
just about house sitting, but I think I watched the video about you on affiliate marketing. And so tell these ladies who are interested in learning how you live your life, what you have to offer to help them and share with them on how to get started and to be successful doing what you do.
Thank you so much. This has just been a joy for me today. But yes, I have a Yaya sister circle. And I had a lot of sisters who, when I first started posting up about my travels and some of the challenges that I was overcoming and how I was embracing the next journey of my life and the work that I was doing on the inner me, and people would reach out in the DM. And I'm like, okay, so people want to talk. So I started a Yaya Sister Circle, and it really is more of listening and providing encouragement, inspiration, and encouraging you to lean into your faith, whatever that might be, whatever your higher power might be. Start trusting it and listening to yourself, trusting those instincts. So that's the coaching that I do. I don't like to call it coaching. I like to call it just, we just chatting it up.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as affiliate marketing is concerned, I'm an affiliate for Trusted House Sitters. That is the company that I use 90% of the time to find and secure these fabulous international sits. And simply because they are the most well known, recognized, they have safety precautions in place on both sides for the host and the sitter that I really like. So yeah, I became an affiliate because I'm talking about it. So if I talk about something, I want to get paid for it, right? That's
Absolutely.
that's all affiliate marketing is, right? You become an affiliate, you get paid for talking about what it is. Somebody signs up, those are some coins in your pocket. So I like my wine. Y'all, thank you for all the bottles of wine. I appreciate it.
I love it. I love it. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time. You have been a light on my journey, and I'm just loving watching you gallivanting all over. I'm like, I'm right behind her. I'm coming. I'm
Yes.
right
Come
behind
on,
her.
sis. Let's go.
I
Let's
love
go.
it. I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. And you're such an inspiration to me, and I really
Oh,
appreciate you taking the time to talk to these ladies. So, this is Miss Diamond, brand new Crystal, the Gallivanting Grandma, who is
trademark that.
trademark Boo, who is in
Yes.
Colombia right now as we speak. And wow, we are going to put all of her information on how to find her in the chat, including the link to her YouTube channel, and tell them where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. So on Instagram, I am the Gallivanting Grandma. On Facebook, I am Diamond Brand New Crystal. And on YouTube, the Gallivanting Grandma. So find me anywhere on my website. And thank you again for the opportunity to come and chat it up with you and all the ladies. It's been a joy.
Thank you so much.